Welcome back to another video here at Thermal Mermaid, and it's time to get back to our soap making. In this video, today I'm making our Rolling Waves cold process bars. So here I'm going to be showing you an easy way to make a textured design with a charcoal pencil line. And if you take your time, you can get great layers and tons of different colors, no matter how many different ways you want to make this design. Now this is a very simple 3-pound soap recipe that's crafted to work at a medium trace. So I need some time to work with it, but I really do want this to set up within a few minutes so that we can move along, because I'm going to pour this in layers and mix each layer individually. So here I have just 1/5 of my oil and lye solution that's been emulsified, and we'll add the color and the fragrance into each part separately. Now the main feature of this bar is a layered design of blue shades separated with a soft charcoal line, and then the layers are textured to look like rolling waves. Now after I pour the first layer, I'm going to give this 5 minutes to start to set up. And then when I come back, I'm going to use this handmade scraping tool that I cut out of cardboard and then drag it across the top. And I'll just go over this until I like how the texture looks. Now you can make this as dramatic as you like, and if the soap isn't being sculpted into place, just give it a few more minutes until it's firm, and then you can get it to stay where you want. And I'm just going to go back and forth a few times because I'm not trying to scoop any of the soap out, I just want the texture on top. So in this case, this will take me a few swipes until I get it just the way I like it. So we'll work with this for a little bit, and once I have it how I like it, I'm going to end up placing a hand colander or a sieve on the top of the mold, and then I'll put about a tablespoon of charcoal in and then dust this over the top. Now I just want to mention there are plenty of tools that you can use to get a nice light coverage. If you don't have a sieve in your drawer, you don't really have to go out and buy any sort of new tools for every single one of these projects. You can use a plastic coffee filter, you can even use a spoon, and I just caution that if you're using dehydrated organic material, try not to dust this up into the air where it can linger and then you can breathe it in. Aloe powder is the worst. Some of the natural ingredients are so lightweight that when they're dusted, they just sit in the air. And then when you walk through and then you breathe the dust, inevitably it'll rehydrate into your lungs. You could potentially be a real problem for you. So if you're using powdered minerals, if you're using mica lines, if you're using anything that is your more traditional colorants, this is not so much of a problem because they won't expand when they're wet. Charcoal, it's a type of an ash made from coconut or wood. Now this isn't the worst, but it does just sit in the air because it's so light. So keep that in mind when you're using it, especially if this is the first time that you're using charcoal and you don't have too much experience, because breathing it in is comparable to like if you're working with drywall or something like that. Now this isn't something that you have to be overly worried about, just be aware of it because it's not something that you want to take a breath with. And just because you've moved on to the next phase of what you're working on doesn't mean that that charcoal isn't still sitting up there just sort of lingering like dust, like all the other dust in your breathing space. Now as I pour this second layer, you can see that there's a generous amount of charcoal down there, and this is completely saturated. The organic powders tend to soak up moisture better, and this is good for pouring your layers and getting them to stick without having them fall apart on you. You might sometimes see pencil line projects where the two halves, they don't stick together and fall apart after the soap is set up. Glitter can sometimes be difficult, clay if it's too thick. But if you're just starting out trying pencil line designs, charcoal's a good choice because, well, first of all, it gives you a nice defined line that you can easily see, and this stuff is eager to absorb moisture, so you'll get good adhesion between your layers. Now if your charcoal looks dry, you can always spritz it with rubbing alcohol over the top, and this also will help keep the layers dry together. Now if you want to replicate this, I'm using La Bamba Blue for the darker blue color and Blue Lagoon for the lighter color here that you see me pouring. The La Bamba is 1/2 teaspoon per part, and the Blue Lagoon is only 1/4 teaspoon to give me that nice silver light blue color. And the fragrance that we're also putting in here, it's about 1/4 of an ounce per part, and we're using crystal blue waters, which matches the colors here beautifully. Now I mentioned before, the recipe that we're using is a medium trace recipe, and the oils we're using are a combination of castor, coconut, olive, and lard. And of course, lard can be replaced with palm if you want a vegan recipe. So this is a very standard, basic cold process recipe. And of course, if you want the full details, you can print the recipe directly from the members directory at thermalmermaid.com. But you can also use your favorite cold process recipe to make a design like this. Now, if you're a beginner, it's easier to practice and work with these designs by making them with a medium or a thin trace, because they set up more slowly and then you can take your time working. And sometimes, when you're just learning, you might be missing tools that you have to go fish for, or you may need to replace an ingredient, or you may want to film your work like I'm doing here. And it's not really possible to work with a thick, heavy recipe that sets up quickly if you're trying to multitask, or if you don't know how all your ingredients are going to react and you really need time to think about it. So just be mindful that you can control your space, but you also can control your time when you mix the batter in separate parts, and then choose a recipe that moves more slowly. Now, if you've seen some of my other tutorials, you might have noticed that I tend to like thick trace recipes. I've done a few of these specifically with the pencil lines, where I just mix it all up in one batch and then pour all 5 parts very quickly. And sometimes even getting it thick enough to where I'm spooning the layers on top when the soap firms up. If you like to work this way, you can completely make your pencil lines perfectly fine by choosing a thicker trace recipe. You don't need to slow pour and then go step by step. I just find that it's easier for people who are just learning the designs, or if you're just starting out in soap making. Then once you get the hang of it, you can end up morphing it into the technique that fits your work style much better. So everything that you see me do here, it's not set in stone. It's just the easiest way to move along, especially if you're just learning cold process soap making. Now, going back a few minutes ago, I mentioned that charcoal is an easy ingredient for pencil lines. Now, if you're a beginner, I would recommend starting off using charcoal because the final result is crisp and easy to see, it's friendly to use, and if you want more detail on what colorants work well and then what you absolutely cannot use, then I'll go into more detail and list that out for you over in lesson 6.8 in the members directory. Over there, we'll cover specific colorants that you can use that look great with pencil lines, and then the ones that you definitely cannot use. But for right now, that's more detail than we'll go into for this video. But if you are more intermediate and you want to get a rundown of that information, then you can find it posted in the video in lesson 6.8 at thermalmermaid.com. Now here we're just about to pour the 4th level, and right about now it's taken me about 15 to 20 minutes so far. And one thing that happens when these layers get poured is that they're a little bit more time consuming than some of the other recipes. Now, don't think that just because I'm doing this in multiple controlled steps that this has to be done in a 3-pound small mold. You could easily double or triple this recipe and then pour it into a slab mold, and then take the exact same amount of time to make this project into a 30-bar project instead of the 11 that I'm making here. So if you're at a level where you're making soap for a few hours one evening, but you're going to sell it on your website or you're going to take it out to the market, you might want to be a little bit more productive than taking an hour just to make 11 bars. So you can easily craft your scraping tool to fit any size mold that you're working with, and that includes a wide slab mold. Now, if you're doing this ruffled design that you see me doing here, then you'll want to make sure that your slab mold is at least 3 to 4 inches deep so that you can get all the layers in. Now, I'll mention that coming up this week, I have a face mask recipe that I'm going to be showing you, and ways to package face masks with and without adding preservatives, and which preservatives are okay for your face, along with an ingredient for skin lightening, which this was requested, the request was posted over at the Thermal Mermaid forum. So I'm going to go into this to show you the clinical studies that I'm drawing from to create a face mask with skin lightening properties. And to be clear, when I say skin lightening, this usually means correcting melasma, not bleaching the color of your face, which you should never want to do. This is just lightening, which is about blending uneven patches from sun or age, and there is science behind this with natural ingredients. So you'll have to subscribe and click the notification bell if you'd like to get that information coming up in one of the next few videos that'll be posted this week. Alright, now we're ready to pour the 5th and the final layer of this bar of soap. It's taken quite some time. I think with the top of the design, we'll sculpt that just like we have with all the other layers. But before we get to that, I'm going to let you guys know that the soap swap has been announced over in the Facebook group. I think there were more than 30 of you who signed up for the swap this time. It's over there posted ready to go. If you signed up and you forgot, make sure that you go and check and see who your partner is, because the soaps are being sent out now, and the most fun part is when everyone starts posting their pictures from what they get in the mail. If you missed or if you signed up too late, then make sure that you are checking the Facebook group, because I saw that Steve, our swap master, posted that the next one will be January 2nd, and you can get in on that one if you missed out this time. So if you do like free games and you like joining in with other soapers, everyone's invited to join this project. And 24 hours later, we're ready to cut and see the inside of this loaf. And so here we have our cold process rolling waves. The charcoal lines came out beautifully, and the texture offers this adorable ripple effect. Now these bars only need to be cleaned up, they need to be beveled and set aside to cure, and they will be available over in the store if you'd like to have one for yourself and have them arrive in your mailbox. And also the recipe is located in the Thermal Mermaid members directory, listed under cold process soap and titled Rolling Waves. So I hope you come back later this week, and then you will get the details on crafting a licorice and clay face mask.